Good afternoon and welcome everybody. My name is Miles Hanson. I'm the president and CEO of World Trade Center Utah, and this is the fifth and concluding breakout session of our virtual trade mission to Canada. For those who are joining us for the first time today and looking down the participant list right now, I see several familiar names, but there are several that are joining us for the first time. I highly encourage you to go back and review the previous sessions that we've held today. It's felt like a bit of a marathon, but lots of good stuff. Lots of good substance, and working very hard to build more understanding and opportunities across a range of industries. We kicked things off this morning with an overview about the market in Canada, talking about the opportunities in Canada in various industries, and particularly focusing on Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. We did a session on the life science industry, one on the advanced manufacturing, as well as one we just finished a while ago on supply chains. And now, of course, we're here to talk tech and entrepreneurship. All of these sessions will be on our website. They also are on our YouTube channel. So we encourage anybody who would have an interest in any of those previous sessions to go on, check those out. And then, as will be a common theme today and has been a common theme throughout, we will make sure to be in a position to help you follow up, to connect with our speakers, connect with people anywhere in Canada, any of the cities we're focusing on today, so you have a chance to connect and find ways to grow your business. Obviously, technology and entrepreneurship is a topic and a sector and ecosystem here in Utah that is critical to the Utah industry. For those that are joining us from Canada, Utah has one of the top performing tech ecosystems in the country by several measures. We've been outperforming Silicon Valley for many years, and it creates this opportunity where we have Utah companies, competing and winning across the United States and around the world, attracting both mergers and acquisitions, big investment, as well as identifying and taking advantage of growth opportunities. Clearly, Canada has very, very strong areas of competency within tech and entrepreneurship, and that's true across the country, including Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. And so we're looking forward to having a discussion today, and we want to treat this as much as possible as a discussion. And so if you're listening in, please feel free to use the chat function, turn on your mic and turn on your video if you're feeling courageous, and jump in, ask questions, steer the conversation in a way that'll be meaningful for you. Before jumping into the program, I'd just like to go ahead and recognize our partners. We're very grateful to the Canadian Consulate General in Denver, David Smith. He's going to be our moderator today. He's been working very hard to help us connect with key business leaders across Canada. We're also grateful to our local partners, the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and we're very grateful for our partners across Canada, including Toronto Global, Vancouver Economic Commission, and Montreal International, for helping us we're grateful for them for providing the substance and the speakers for the various breakout sessions today. Before jumping in to our initial speaker, I just wanted to highlight again David Smith, as well as Courtney Ray. Courtney will be finishing off our session this afternoon, but Courtney leads all of our international programming for World Trade Center Utah, and so she's the one that's been working with David and others to plan today's virtual trade mission. And most importantly, she's the one that will be assisting you as you work to follow up on opportunities in Canada, whether that's looking for outbound international sales, looking for joint venture partners, or looking for capital partners. Courtney can be your gateway into the various services and grants that World Trade Center Utah can provide. And so please reach out to her and expect to hear from her with the slide decks and various information from the sessions that we've had today. And so I'd like to go ahead now and check really quickly our national industry speaker, Dean Prelazzi. I think I saw, Courtney, were you just chatting with Dean?
Yeah, I think he got on, but I think his mic is not working. Hannah, maybe you can call him and give him a phone number to call into. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
On and off twice.
Hannah, if you could follow up with Dean and see if we can't get him patched in. And in the meantime, David, you know Utah very well. You spent a lot of time out here. You obviously know Canada very well. Would you be willing to spend a few minutes to help us set the stage for our city presenters and our city panel that you'll be moderating by talking a little bit about tech and entrepreneurship in Canada, with a focus on with the Utah companies that are tuning in right now today? What advice would you give to them on how they can explore opportunities to grow and expand in Canada? And then David, if Dean's able to jump in, that's fantastic. We'll kick it over to him. But if not, we're very grateful to have Jason and Leah, who can provide their expertise and their perspective from Toronto and Montreal. So let's proceed accordingly. David, I'll go ahead and pass the baton over to you, and then we'll keep our fingers crossed that Hannah can work with Dean to resolve this technical difficulty.
Great. Thank you so much, Miles, and it's great being with everyone today. I feel like this last session we're wrapping up is really kind of the crown jewel of all the sessions, because technology is so robust and so vibrant. Every time that I visit over in Utah, I'm just amazed at the number of new companies that are tech companies that are being launched. You obviously have a great spirit of entrepreneurism in Utah. Canada shares that as well. So I feel like there's lots of synergies to build upon. And the tech scene is very vibrant in Canada. Some of the areas that might be of interest to you are in financial technology, Fintech. Gaming development has been storied and strong in Utah. Well, it's also strong in Canada as well. In fact, there's been some great partnerships with the different universities, the University of Utah, BYU, and others who are actually using some Canadian software for the training in gaming development. So we have lots of examples of partnerships within the technology industry. I would also say AI is big, as you've probably heard throughout the course of the day, and how that affects so many different industries. Educational technology. I know Utah is one of the leading states in bringing technology into the classroom, and that's very impressive. And we're also seeing that with Canada as well. So there's lots of different subsectors. When we talk about technology, it works across all industries. I think one of the things that's interesting about Canada is that the lifeblood of any tech organization is tech talent. And Canada has access to that through some special worker visa programs that we'll get into later. But the fact that you have a lot of graduates from STEM coming from overseas to fill those gaps, to help, give life and strength to the Canadian tech economy is very important. And one of the things that I want to do is, how can you as a Utah company be connected to the ecosystems in Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto? So I'm looking forward to getting the discussion. We have great panelists here today. I will just say, last January, before everything shut down, I was actually attending the Silicon Slopes conference in Salt Lake, and was just so impressed with the caliber of the tech talent that you have there in Utah. It's a young population that's highly educated, that bodes well for the future of Utah. And it's also spurring development in Canada, and we'll talk about that. So Miles, I'll turn it back over to you. Do we have Dean on the line?
Thank you, Dean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
for that overview. Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've got Dean on the line yet.
No, I think Hannah's working on getting him on still.
Coming on right now.
Oh, he's coming on right now. Fantastic.
Fantastic. So, yeah, let's
Here
go
he is.
ahead.
I see him right there. Dean, can you hear us? No. Dean, can you hear us? I see him. Hannah, I would just have him call in to the phone number instead.
That's what I told him to do.
Okay.
So he may be calling in now. Sometimes when you call and you connect by phone audio, then it gives you the option to call in. Why don't we do this? In the interest of time, we want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions and answers. Dave, let's go ahead and jump into our city speakers. We've got Jason Goldlist, co-founder of Tech Toronto, Leah Lamont, Executive Director for Technology Accelerator Bonjour startup, and of course Dean, who was going to talk about the national industry as well as represent Vancouver. And David, perhaps we could go and start with Jason and Leah, and at that point, hopefully Dean is able to come on, and in addition to talking about Vancouver, we'd love any additional thoughts that he may have on the national industry, at which point, David, you can go ahead and moderate the Q&A session. Does that work okay for everybody?
That's great. So why don't I go ahead and give a little background on Jason before he starts out. So Jason Goldlist is the co-founder of Tech Toronto, an organization dedicated to fostering growth and community in the Canadian technology ecosystem. He's at Wealth Simple. Jason helped set strategic direction and lead major initiatives across all aspects of the business. He began his involvement with Wealth Simple as an early advisor to CEO and co-founder Mike Ketchum prior to joining full-time as employee number 10 and the first non-founder member of the leadership team. He has acted as head of marketing, launched Wealthsimple's B2B offerings, and was the CEO of Canada Shareholder Investments, a 2015 acquisition where he led a successful post-merger integration and built a high-performing technology and operations team to support its rapid scaling. Prior to Wealthsimple, he spent almost 4 years at A Place for Mom, a Warburg Pincus private equity-backed technology portfolio in Seattle. He also started his career as a management consultant at McKinsey & Company, and he's an active startup advisor and angel investor and holds an MBA from INSEAD. So why don't you go ahead and get us started, Jason? And Jason is our representative from Toronto. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and to chat a little bit about the tech scene in Toronto. David, do you want to start with some questions, or how did you want the session to sort of operate today?
Why don't you give it kind of an overview of the Toronto tech ecosystem and kind of some of the trends you're seeing, if you don't mind? That'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, let me give you the story of the Toronto ecosystem. Maybe you find it to be a familiar one to the one that you've experienced in Utah, or maybe there's some learnings that you guys can take from it. But what we've seen happen in Toronto over the last decade has been quite an astronomical change. What happened is, about 20 years ago, when people were starting careers in technology, the only place to really operate tech companies at scale was down south of the border in the US. And what's interesting about that is a lot of Canadians left their cities and they went to the west coast of the US. They went to the east coast of the US to become technology professionals. Now, at the same time, we had some companies that started to gain some traction. You might remember BlackBerry, RIM coming out of the Waterloo area. Of course, we had Nortel coming out of the Ottawa area. And so we had these large winners that were coming, but the flywheel wasn't turning yet. What happened is, after those companies had a bit of a collapse, some talent started coming back from Toronto, and we started seeing our first homegrown technology winners. So over the past 15 years, we've seen Shopify come out of Ottawa. That's now for a moment, I think it might still be the largest company by market cap in Canada, which is unbelievable for an e-commerce platform, larger than our national banks, which have almost always been the largest, most valuable companies here. And it's a really interesting thing. If you look at it, a lot of talent has come back from the US to Canada. Now, at the same time, what we've always had from all those decades of investing in our strong education system are really smart, really technical, really driven engineers. What they were missing, for the most part, was leadership in the senior ranks. And as they came back and as some companies started to win, we've now seen an explosion of technology from all parts, from startups to scale-ups to large companies from all over the world coming into Canada. Of course, some of the work that we did being shortlisted for Amazon's HQ2, the only non-US city with that distinction, which was super cool. Of course, winning huge investments from Amazon, from Uber, from all sorts of innovative companies that really are looking for access to world-class talent. And that world-class talent doesn't just come from the local area universities, it comes from everywhere. I think we're going to talk a little bit about Canada's attitude towards immigration, in particular skilled labor, and how we're able to bring unbelievable people into our cities. And finally, it's also supported by not just great talent, but also a really open environment to doing business here. So there are tons of incentives and opportunities for companies that are operating in Canada and that are building innovative technology to get benefits for doing so. And so we can talk about all that today, and excited to dig in and answer your questions.
Okay, thanks so much, Jason. We can move on then to Leah Lamont, and let me give you a bio on Leah. Leah is the Executive Director for Technology Accelerator Bonjour Startup Montreal. She said her first source of inspiration and energy comes from the entrepreneurs she had the privilege to work with over the course of her career. She's looking to make a positive impact. She's been evolving in philanthropy for the past 15 years as Executive Director of Foundation Montreal, a nonprofit that catalyzes the success of young, innovative, and ambitious businesses through startup grants and access to prestigious business network. In 2019, Leah co-founded Bonjour Startup Montreal, an organization whose mission is to help Montreal be the best place on earth to launch and grow a startup and let the whole world know about it, she says. Leah is a CPA who studied law with a focus on international business. She started her career assisting entrepreneurs in their export ventures with the Government of Canada, and later went on to become the CEO of World Trade Center Montreal. So we hold a special thank you for her. Thanks so much, Leah. Why don't you go ahead and give us your presentation?
Thank you. I have a presentation, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Please let me know if that works fine. Maybe just a second. There you go. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. So a little bit of a word or two on Bonjour Startup Montreal. We're a nonprofit organization. We're very new. We were founded in 2018, and our mission is to facilitate the creation, the growth, and the visibility of Montreal startups, but also the startup ecosystem. We want to let the whole world know, and Utah know, that Montreal is now the place to be for startups. We're a younger ecosystem than, say, Toronto, for example, and much younger than Silicon Valley. But that makes it even more exciting because you can have your say and you can influence how our ecosystem is developing. So welcome to Montreal. Here are the 6 main reasons why Montreal is an amazing startup system. The first one is location. Montreal is a strategic entry gate for the European markets because of our location on the eastern part of Canada, and also because of our historical and cultural ties with France and the special relationships and many agreements that we have with the Francophone countries in Europe. Also, you can fly from Montreal to New York, to Boston, and Toronto in 90 minutes or less. Second one is talent. With access to 6 universities and 12 junior colleges in a 5 miles radius, Montreal has the highest proportion of post-secondary students of all major cities in North America. This represents almost 180,000 university students, of which 11,000 are studying in AI-related fields. The vast majority of the population speaks both English and French. We're a mix of French exaltation and British rationalism. C'est magnifique. Costs. The most affordable metropolis in North America is Montreal. Operation costs are lower than in any major cities for software development. It's an average cost advantage of 29%. We also have tax credit, but I think we'll discuss that a little bit later. We're open. Montreal is one of the most secure metropolis in the world, and Montrealers are known to be friendly and open to diversity. Creativity is part of our DNA. Montreal is home to Cirque du Soleil, Moment Factory, C2 Montreal, and more than 100 festivals per year. And we score very high on quality of life. Montrealers have great purchasing power, affordable housing. I repeat, affordable housing. It's still a reality here. The food scene is crazy, and we have 4 very different seasons to enjoy nature. We also have more than 750 miles of cycling path in the city. The 3 levels of governments are sending strong and consistent signals that startups matter. The City of Montreal has 11 startup funds in the form of loans, grants, and they offer financial support for incubators, accelerators, and other support organizations. The mayor of Montreal, Valérie Plante, a woman, is a supporter. She's on the advisory board of Bonjour Startup Montreal. The Quebec government is very involved in the funding of many initiatives for startups, including accelerators, incubators, international partnerships, open innovation projects, and the well-being of startups founders. We care. As a share of GDP, Quebec's R&D expenditures are the largest of all Canadian provinces. And finally, the Canadian government is investing in startups. BDC, the Business Development Bank, offers loans and has its own venture capital arm. There are also R&D tax credits and a variety of programs to encourage innovation, women and Aboriginal entrepreneurs, and specific industries as well. We have verticals within the startup ecosystem, so ecosystems within the ecosystem. The best known, of course, is artificial intelligence, and I believe you already had a session on artificial intelligence today. But in terms of the startup ecosystem, Montreal is home to AI-powered supply chain hub Scale AI, the world's largest academic research center in deep learning, NILA, and the Institute for Data Valorization, IVADO. Greater Montreal has 7 AI accelerator programs, 9 research centers, and 17 corporate labs. 7 new were created just last year. AI contributes to the strength of Montreal's robotics, advanced manufacturing, medtech, and mobility sectors, just to name a few. We also have a very strong life sciences and health tech hub. Advanced manufacturing and robotic is another of our strong ecosystem. Mobility, clean tech, fintech, and creativity are all booming sectors. Montreal International website is the best place to start if you're looking for information on those specific industries. So I invite you to jump into Montreal's startup ecosystem. You will never feel lonely. Montreal is home to approximately 1,200 startups, and you will find everything you can dream of in terms of funding, talent, co-working spaces and hubs, accelerators, and support organizations and events in a vibrant startup community. There are so many fun services and activities that Bonjour Startup Montreal was created in part to help startups founders navigate our generous ecosystem. For example, we have 30 accelerators and incubators. Some are linked to a VC, others to a university, and you will also find nonprofit accelerators that are just there to help you for free. Many have specialized in vertical over the past years. They are extremely useful because of the way they are connected to your industry. And some are known to be world-class. Some examples, Santec and McGill X1 Accelerator are some of the best university affiliated accelerators according to UBI Top 20. We also have a special incubator called Entreprisme, who was described as a unique model promoting inclusion and diversity by the OECD. In Montreal, culture, design, and beauty is democratic. Here are some of our most beautiful tech hubs. The 4 represented here are all conversions of old buildings to give them a second or even a third vocation. There's no need to launch a startup from your garage anymore. It can be done in a beautiful setting. Of course, money is important, we know it. From early stage funding to scale up, we now have a pretty strong investment chain. 1.6 billion Canadian dollars were invested in VC investments in 2019 in Montreal only. And 4 of the 5 most active VCs in Canada are based in Montreal. We have the largest angel investors network in Canada called Ange Québec. And Montreal is also a place where startups scale. So here are some of the latest highest rounds from Sunder, Element AI, Hopper Strategy, Alaya Care, Benson, and Lightspeed rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange last Friday. We're very proud of it. Montreal is open to diversity, and so is our ecosystem with specific initiatives to promote diversity and to support female entrepreneurs from this idea stage to the next phases. And Montreal is known for its active entertainment and festival scene, so the startup community needed its own festival. It's called Startup Fest, and it takes place on July every year. We all hope to be able to feel the Startup Fest vibe next year. Finally, Montreal is globally recognized for different good reasons, and one of them is being welcoming. So my fellow Montrealers and I would be more than happy if you reached out to us for any questions or introductions, or even to practice your French. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Leah. We appreciate that. Let's check in with Dean and see how he's doing. What do we think? No luck? Are you able to call in on the phone number that Hannah gave to you?
Dean, your phone is on mute.
There's a phone number, Dean, that you can just call into from just a normal landline. You have just a normal landline or phone you can call into on?
He's called in. His phone is on mute.
Just your normal phone is on mute, no? Okay, not working. All right, should we go into Q&A then? Let's do this. Yeah. So David, I'm gonna go ahead and just give a little introduction for David Smith. David is the Trade Commissioner for the technology sector. He works at the Canadian Consulate in Denver and has been very instrumental in helping this to happen today. We're so grateful for him. He is actively engaged in FDI attraction efforts which have led to new job creation in many cities throughout Canada. The primary tech clusters that he focuses on include digital health, gaming development, enterprise software, and smart city solutions. David is a native of Seattle and fluent in French after having lived 2 years in Belgium and France. He holds an MBA from the University of Colorado and a BS degree in international marketing and finance from Brigham Young University. David, go ahead. Thanks so much for doing this.
Right. Thank you so much, Courtney. So a question I have for both our panelists is, if I'm a Utah company, I want to become better connected to the tech business community, the tech ecosystem in Toronto and Montreal. What would you recommend? Where would you start? So, Leah, why don't we begin with you? What would you recommend to a Utah company that says, I want to be more connected?
Well, that's pretty easy. That would be us, because that's Bonjour Startups Montreal's mission. So you can connect directly to me, and we'll help you navigate the ecosystem, basically. So we'll find the right connection for you. That's our job. And we're connected to other organizations like the Montreal Board of Trade, and anyone that could also be helpful for you. So.
Okay, excellent. And then Jason, how about from the Toronto side? What would you recommend?
That's a great answer that Leah gave, of course, which is you can contact us and we can help. But sometimes you also want to explore on your own. And that's why I encourage you to do a couple things. First, if you head over to the TechTO website, techto.org, programming that you can join today. In fact, right after this call. And not only are you learning from other technology leaders in Canada, there's an opportunity to meet other people as well. So to create and expand your professional network here, you can meet people one-on-one at all the events and then leave an evening event just like this with 5 or 10 or more new contacts in the ecosystem. And from those one-on-one experiences, just like you'd have if you were walking down the startup corridor in Toronto and you bumped into someone and struck up a conversation for coffee, you now have a team that's going to help you, because Canadians, as Liette had mentioned, are welcoming in Montreal, they're welcoming in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Halifax, everywhere, as they want to help you succeed. The other thing I'd mention is, for even lower commitment, sign up to some Canadian technology news sources. So I'm sure there's a newsletter that comes out from Montreal, from Bonjour Montreal. We have one as well. But also check out some of the news organizations like The Logic, which is similar to The Information, but here in Canada, and BetaKit, which is kind of like the TechCrunch, but here in Canada. And if you follow those journalists and those writers and those names on Twitter, you'll instantly get into the information flow here in Canada.
Awesome. I'm going to pick your brain a little more. There's one of the largest tech conferences I know in North America and perhaps the world is Collision. Can you just talk to us about that?
Collision's a really normally special conference that brings people in from all over the world to Toronto. What's neat about it is it facilitates deals that have nothing even to do with Canada, which is very cool. So it's a great place for an American company to meet a European partner or an Asian supplier, or all sorts of things that happens to happen here in Toronto. But because it's been happening here for a couple of years and will continue to happen for a couple more years, the people in the city and people that hop over from Montreal or other nearby towns can really plug into the global wheelings and dealings that happen there. great place for business development, and great place to have fun. But that's only 1 week a year. So I don't think you move to a city or to a country for a 1 week a year global festival. I think what makes a big difference is the ecosystem that stays behind when they pack up and leave. And I think we're lucky in a lot of the major tech cities here to have a strong system that doesn't rely on any one festival.
Good, very good point. Thank you. Is Dean on the line with us now from Vancouver?
I'll give this a try. How's that? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Sounds great, Dean.
Yes, we can.
Oh my God. I'm very sorry, everybody. I can't say that I've ever had that experience trying to jump onto a Zoom call this whole time. So my apologies. Should I comment on British Columbia and Vancouver?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, first of all, just a bit of my background, 20 plus years in advanced technology. And I spent 5 years in the US, and I came to Vancouver and worked for a bunch of startups, but then through a number of different pieces of serendipity, ended up working for the British Columbia Innovation Council, which is the crown corporation of the provincial government. So across the entrepreneurial sector in British Columbia in technology, I had the luxury of being on both sides of the table, both on the private sector and public sector side. If you're coming into Vancouver and you're a tech entrepreneur or technology company of any kind, I would say there's a number of places to check in with. Number one would be Innovate BC, which is formerly the British Columbia Innovation Council, where I used to work. And this is a team of people that works in very close proximity to the provincial government, and as well the provincial colleagues in trade, but particularly around the technology profile. And by technology, it's a broad definition, including clean tech, life sciences, et cetera. So this organization is essentially the conduit for the provincial government and does a lot of good work in the community, including managing the British Columbia Acceleration Network and the Venture Acceleration Program, which is a province-wide acceleration technology and mentorship program. The next area I would suggest would be BC Tech Association, otherwise known as we are BCTech.com, I think it is. They changed their name a while ago, but it's just known as BC Tech. So the Tech Association, there's also the Digital Media Association, DigiBC, depending on the kind of technology that you're involved in. And there's also a number of other folks across the community, including the Clean Technology CEOs Forum. And the first two sources that I mentioned would be able to direct you to a number of other sources as you go deeper into the community.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that wealth of information. So I have my next question for the panel is, having worked in the technology industry at Oracle and PeopleSoft and things like that, the lifeblood of any tech organization is talent and access to talent. I have a question in saying, there's a program called the Global Talent Stream. How has that helped technology companies grow in Canada, and how could our Utah companies take advantage of that if they were to be doing business in Canada? Jason, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let me start with a general response, and then maybe Leah, because a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about, and Dean can comment, are national programs. But first and foremost, each of the major tech hubs in Canada is situated near world-class educational institutions. So the first part, you're going to find amazing junior talent that are coming out of SFU or UBC or McGill or Concordia or Waterloo, which people talk about as being the MIT of Canada. It's the only place where I think Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos would come and recruit themselves every year. It'd be MIT and Waterloo. And so they're always going to get junior talent from the educational institutions. There's a heavy flow of that. Second, the talent that's already here is unbelievable. As we talked about, some of those winners that you saw Leah share in Montreal, some of the companies I mentioned coming up in Toronto. I think Shopify is employing several thousand employees here in Toronto now. And of course, some of the big winners out in Vancouver, like Hootsuite, they've trained all sorts of sort of middle and senior management that have the experience now to operate, whether it's the Facebook offices in Vancouver or, Alexander that's doing it in Montreal. They have these skills. Third, if you can't find what you're looking for, we've got to talk about the global talent stream. And that's coming in, and those are people that are becoming the talent that's here. And what's unbelievable about what's happening politically in the world is that Canada has become a more attractive place now than ever for global talent to come. And I can talk about it specifically, you know, on my engineering teams. I have, you know, I have someone who's a Portuguese speaker from Brazil. I've got a Taiwanese national. You know, I've got people coming in from Singapore. They're all coming here, and they've been here for 5 years, or they'll come in 10 days. But there's a ton of talent coming from abroad, and that's a national program that can help in Montreal or Vancouver. Leah, you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes, well, we do have the university, as you mentioned, for junior talent. That's a good point. And then for more, I think what we're lacking now in Montreal, to be honest, is that hyper growth talent, because not that many startups have scaled to that side in Montreal. So we're now looking at even building a growth academy in Montreal to help us, and we're recruiting talent from abroad to help our startups scale and get that specific knowledge that you need to have when you're scaling a company. So that's probably one of the kind of talents that we're looking for the most right now.
Thank you. One of the questions that we received from our audience is they would like to be more connected to the gaming development ecosystem in Canada, the VR people, you know, in that area. And I know there's different associations, like in Montreal, Alliance Numérique, or, you know, there's the Ontario Digital Media, BC as well. So what would be your recommendations to this Utah company that says, I want to see how I can be introduced to more of these VR, you know, special effects types companies? What would you recommend to this individual?
I can take a crack at that. I mean, I think again, the BC Tech Association here in British Columbia has a VR AR sort of subsector within its management, and so again, as a central conduit for accessing any number of types of industries in the technology industry, that is still a great place to go. I would also say the Vancouver Economic Commission is very, very active around all emerging technology domains, and it has taken a particular interest in the AR, VR sector over the last several years. There's a few companies in town, not the least of which is Finger Foods, which was acquired by Unity Games just last year, which is just blown up in the AR, VR space. But not particularly focused on gaming, particularly focused on the application of gaming logic and AR, VR logic that you'd typically see in games and that was created in games, but the application of that outside of games, which is a big trend right now in the industry. Other than that, you know, I think just reaching out to companies, for example, EA Sports, and building a connection with some key people within EA Sports to help you plug into the community, I think would be a great way to expand your horizons into the AR, VR sector within British Columbia, within Vancouver.
Okay, thank you. Jason, did you have...
I was going to say in Montreal, Ubisoft started the whole thing in terms of video games in Montreal many years ago. I'd say more than 20 years now. So they built their own ecosystem because they needed to create the talent here, and it became a place now for independent studios as well. So there is an ecosystem for video games in Montreal. I did not mention it because we don't consider it's really part of the startup ecosystem, but it is in a way. So Alliance Numérique would definitely be the place to be. It's an association where they regroup everyone in the industry. And Ubisoft would be also a nice door to knock on because they're very open and they like to interact with anyone from abroad, with startups, with corporates. So they're a good team player in Montreal.
Excellent, thank you. So my next question is for Dean, actually for the entire group. You know, at Fujitsu, what you're seeing is, you know, technology is ubiquitous across all different industries. And I saw that, that your company is involved with a whole host of different industries. Are there any specific industries in Canada that are you're seeing more early adopters of the technology that our Utah audience should be aware of, where they're seeing the, greater pockets of growth? Where you're seeing a greater demand? Is it in, Fintech? Is it in cybersecurity? What are you seeing, Dean? We'll start with you.
I'm seeing a fairly consistent across the board adoption level depending on industry. Like for sure, the COVID-19 crisis has really shined a spotlight on technology within healthcare. And I don't know if you managed to cover the supercluster program in your Canada intro, but we've got 5. I should ask the question. Did you cover the supercluster program?
We did talk about the superclusters in another panel session. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Well, because I mean, if you look at the superclusters, it really is the application of technology across multiple types of industries. But I would say, again, the COVID-19 crisis really shone a light on the healthcare sector. And I think we've seen a tremendous amount of investment by the government, as well as investment in terms of blood, sweat, and tears by the technology community into all things health. And I think that's going to continue. I really feel I'm starting to see market signals that suggest the healthcare sector is really going to use this opportunity not only to address the crisis, but address it in a way that drives a sustainable digital transformation across all forms of healthcare. I think with the large banks in Canada, Fintech for sure is something that to keep an eye on. We've already seen it with the likes of RBC's investments and other banks' investments into the Fintech arena. And this is an industry that, has long been, in some ways criticized for being laggards of adopting the latest and greatest technology. But I think that's changing considerably, looking at the investments that they've made in the sector and also looking at the kind of people that they're bringing on board. I think the other part I would mention is because Canada is such a resource-intensive economy, we are starting to see the resource industries putting a strong foot forward in terms of further entrenching their efforts in driving digital transformation. Particularly in the oil industry, we know that the oil industry is not in the greatest of shape as of late, but our personal experience is that there are signals to demonstrate that at times like this, these industries are really looking to do more with less, so to speak, and really ensure that their current internal infrastructures are benefiting from the latest and greatest trends in technology. So those are a few. I think it's a probably longer conversation, but those are a few that I can see off the top.
Okay, thank you. Leah or Jason, do you want to add on what you're seeing from your regions of Canada?
I'd say the same thing about health technology, of course, because of COVID-19, we're all looking for solutions, and there are many new problems that we need to face. Food tech is very strong in Montreal, and it's a big trend right now because many of the companies that are in the food tech industry really were able to grow over the past couple of months because or thanks to COVID-19. So we're seeing something new happening in that sector. And then I say clean tech because the political movement in the city of Montreal, the government that is in place, has a strong agenda on clean tech. And I think you can bet that there will be more actions taken to make the city cleaner, greener, and it's already starting.
Excellent. All right, Jason from Toronto, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm less opinionated about the different sectors or the different functions. Like, what's hot? Like, good technology companies are hot. And at the end of the day, if you're coming here to recruit talent or you're coming here to build partnerships, like people want to be involved with great companies. And so there's something for everyone. To Dean's point, everything's hot. To Liette's point, there's going to be more action across all sectors. Good companies are going to thrive here in Canada. They're going to attract talent. They're going to win business from other Canadian companies, from global companies, from governments. They're going to be able to really shape the ecosystem here. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. I think we're open to winners across all industries.
Okay. Well stated. You bet. So one of the questions that comes up, particularly from our startup companies, is extending the runway to bring their solutions to market. You know, that's always a challenge, is to have the capital to see your R&D through to bring your solution. So we talked about some of the generous tax credits and the things that help these Canadian tech companies, you know, get legs up and running. Can you talk about the Shred Credit program, which is a federal program, and maybe even how you know of some companies that have used that to to gain that extra capital advantage to go to market? Can you talk about the Shred Credit program, Jason?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. Shred is one of the most.
Sorry.
I think. Oh. Can you guys hear me?
We should say what that acronym stands for. SHRED stands for Scientific Research and Experimental Design. Sorry.
You guys didn't know that in Utah? You know, I would say most people don't know that here either. It's just SHRED, and it really is like, you know, across the technology ecosystem, the most famous program of all. And what SHRED allows companies to do is, if they're building innovative, you know, risky type stuff here in Canada, you can get 50 to 100% of that money back from the government. And it comes in the form of a check at the end of the year. And it's pretty amazing. And I would say that every startup company is taking advantage of SHRED. I would say larger companies take advantage of SHRED in different, more complex ways that probably require external consulting help. And I think over the years, we had the gentleman who's been with the SHRED program like since the 80s come to one of our events, and he's just like, they've funded about $20 billion worth of startup activity in Canada. It's pretty amazing. And I'll also add, and I'm sure that Leah and Dean have their own stories to add, but I want to just also bring in that a great usage of SHRED is when you combine it with a co-op program. And I want to make sure I also highlight the amazing co-op programs here in Canada. A lot of our engineering undergraduate degree programs, instead of being a traditional 4-year degree, are actually 5-year or more degrees. And the students go and they work for 3, 6, 9, 12 or more months with companies. One of the, 100% of Canadian startups are built with co-ops. And it's a great way to get very inexpensive talent, to have it paid for by the government, and also to build your recruiting pipeline. So it's really special programs that happen at all of the colleges, and definitely check out the University of Toronto and University of Waterloo for some of the most famous co-op programs in and around Toronto.
Let me also, for our Utah audience as well, one of the things that's nice is if they enter into a technology partnership with a Canadian company, a lot of times they'll enter into an agreement where they can share these tax credits or they can pass them down, which is an advantage to like a Utah company. When they form a technology partnership and there's joint R&D, they can actually offset their expenditures as well by sharing with us. So the Canadian technology company will apply to get the credit, but because they have that partnership in place, they can pass that along.
Well, in fact, David, I think there's a mechanism for setting up a separate Canadian co, and then taking advantage of SHRED through Canadian co, or maybe not SHRED, but maybe it's the IRAP funding that you can take advantage of. And then what you do is the IP rests in the Canadian co, and then you license the IP back to the parent company in the U.S. I know that this is done multiple times, and by the way, this is probably a good time to highlight. There's if you're gonna come into this neck of the woods to set up a sister company, getting a lawyer that understands the cross-border dynamics, particularly a startup lawyer. There's a ton of great ones in British Columbia that understand this IRAP and SHRED funding environment very, very well, and can help you completely maximize the runway that you mentioned at the beginning of this question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And by the way, we'll work with Cordy and we'll be able to provide more information on all of these programs so you're aware of them and how you can tap into them as well. My next question is, as a result of the pandemic, you know, a lot of companies that are looking to raise capital, what are you hearing in the ecosystem? What's changed since the pandemic as far as businesses pitching and raising capital under these circumstances? Leah, do you want to take that one?
No, I think I'll let Jason or Dean answer that one.
Okay.
I'm happy to. Yeah, I talked about good businesses, and Dean mentioned that the pandemic has transformed certain industries. You know, when you're in the tech sector, I think there have been more winners than losers over the last 6 months. So if I think of companies that were providing virtual healthcare services that might have had difficulty raising before, not so difficult to raise now. Same with virtual education services. And there's a lot of different winners that are happening here. Now, for sectors that might not have been impacted by the pandemic or not yet impacted by the pandemic, we're certainly seeing founders cut very close to the bone to extend their runway. And if they're raising, they're not raising for 18 months. They're raising for 24 or 36 months. One, because they've cut their costs so low, but two, because they're looking for partners that are thinking beyond the recovery. We're seeing a lot of activity. I'm seeing more deals than ever in this ecosystem because I think when time difficult, I would say best alternative to their job is maybe to build something. And so we're seeing more and more entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, second-time entrepreneurs, use this time to build something new. And I think that means there's going to be a lot of opportunities for capital to get behind a lot of new ideas as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
If I could add, yeah, I was going to add to that. I mean, I'm just looking at the Canadian Venture Capital Association, which, by the way, is a really great resource if you're a startup and are considering moving operations into Canada. But the CVCA reported that 1.7 billion was invested in over 145 deals in the second quarter of 2020, which is 23% higher than the same quarter of 2019. So, you know, nothing is slowing down. If anything, things are speeding up. I suspect that in the venture capital world, some folks were a little bit gun shy in the beginning of the year, and then now are plowing their funds back into good deals. And at the end of the day, there is a lot of money available in the angel investment community, in the venture capital community across the country. I think the last time I looked, there was almost over 70 venture capital funds of one form or another plowing money into early stage companies across the country. And if you've got a great business model, you've got traction, and you tick all the typical boxes, there's no shortage of opportunity to get funded.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I appreciate each panel member today that's helped us get a better understanding of technology. I'm privileged to be the moderator for this because I know that Utah and Canada have so much to offer within the technology sector. I also know there's so many impressive startups coming from Canada and Utah, so it's fun to track their success as well. And so with that, Courtney, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate your moderating today and going with the flow. You were fantastic. And Dean, we're sorry you had problems, but we're so glad we got to finally hear from you. That was terrific. And Jason and Leah, thank you both so much for your presentations as well. And thank you all to the Utah participants. Feel free, everyone individually, to reach out to me as Utah companies, and I will make sure to connect you to the right places. And we're so grateful and hope that everyone enjoyed this Canadian virtual trade mission, and want to thank our partners for all the work that they did to make this happen. I hope everyone has a great evening, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.